All right, so yay for earthquake drills. So now we're back, okay? So we know that the factors are 6 and negative 3 because they add to 3 and they multiply to negative 18. So since it's basic, it's just x plus 6 and x minus 3. Okay, and so therefore the zeros or solutions are the opposites of those because it's just a basic one-step equation. So if that equals 0, when you solve, you get negative 1. If that equals 0, when you solve, you get negative 6. And if that equals 0 and you solve, you'll get a positive 3, okay? So the solutions, or the zeros, are the opposites of those, okay? So that's the final answer. And remember, we talked in class about how if the exponent is a 3, which in that case that one was, then it should have 3 solutions. So we knew one of them, and we have found those 2 now as well, okay? So now let's just review all of the parts of dividing, and especially synthetic division and everything we can do with it, okay? I am not sure how much room. I don't think that there's really enough room to do this, especially long division, in this box. So I would go off to the side of your page and just do these problems so that you have a lot more room. But let's work through them. Okay, I'll probably say less just for you to practice. So trying to figure out how I can have more room up here. Okay, so minus 4. Let me make it a little bit shorter. Now, there is a term missing. It goes 3, 2. There should be an x here. Then it goes down to the constant. So I do need to include a 0x and then my 9, okay? All right, so you really do want to look for it 3, 2, 1, then nothing, okay? So keep that in mind, and then remember, this is actually how we went through and found the numbers. We always divided first with first. So x to the third over x. Oh, and that's got to be over 1 because it's going to line up with x squared. So x to the third divided by x gives me x squared. Now I multiply x squared. X to the third. Okay. Then remember the phrase, draw the line, change the signs. Okay. Those cancel. I get negative 2x squared. Bring it down. Okay, now I want to divide the next front with front, so that's negative 2x squared divided by x. And that is negative 2x. So if you notice, it lines up with the x's, and that one lines up with the x squareds. Now I re-multiply. Okay, draw my line. And I don't really need, just make that positive so that when I change the signs, the negative shows up better. Okay, those cancel. Negative 8x. Bring down my 9. Okay, negative 8x divided by x is just negative 8. So now I multiply that to both of those. Negative 8 times negative 4 is positive 32. Draw my line, change my signs. Oh, excuse me. Change my sign to a negative. Okay, these cancel. That becomes a negative 23. So that is our remainder. So remember, this is the answer. X squared minus 2x minus 8 plus, and now we just add the numerator on. Negative 23 over x minus 4. And I know that might be a little hard to see. but it is negative 23. So this is what this is right here, okay? All right, so now this is a lot easier, it's a lot faster. We'll use synthetic division. Let me go ahead and let me erase that. Oh, jeez. Okay, so, all right, let's look for anything missing. 3, 2, 1, 0. So our exponents are good. And then that is our number. So let's make our box. Okay, remember it's the opposite of that, so it's negative 3. The numbers are, the coefficients are 2, 4, negative 3, negative 6. And remember, the remainder is going to be this last line. Okay, so bring it down and multiply. Add and multiply. Add and multiply. So our remainder is negative 15. Okay, so then that's the remainder. That's the constant. That's the x. And that's the x squared. So the way we would write that answer, I'll put it over here just because I have some room. 2x squared minus 2x plus 3 plus a negative 15 over x plus 3. You always put it over what you divided by. So that's this final answer. Okay? So now we're going to use synthetic division to do those two, and then we will be done. Okay? So let me scroll those so we have a little bit more room. I think I'm going to zoom in too. Alright, there we go. Let's do it that way. Alright, so here are our last two problems. Okay, we've got a little bit more room. And again, I would just put the stuff off to the side for you so that you've got more room out there. So, in order to factor, we can use synthetic division to divide this one in, and then it'll tell us, and then we'll have to just factor from there. So the exponents are 3, 2, 1, and 0, so I don't have to worry about including any other numbers. So the factor is plus 2, so I divide by its opposite, which is negative 2. Okay? 3, 8, 3, and negative 2. Remember, the remainder should be a 0 because if it divides evenly, that's what makes it a factor. So we shouldn't have any remainder. If we do, then we just want to go back and double check ourselves. So this is a 3. Multiply and add. Multiply and add. Multiply and add. So we know that we're right because the remainder is 0. So that means this is our trinomial, constant x and x squared. So the constant, the x, and the x squared. So what we have to do is we have to factor that. So again, we go back to our flow chart. If we have 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, that is an advanced trinomial because of that 3. So what number is multiplied to negative 3 and add to 2? Well, there's only two numbers that multiply to 3, so that's 3 and 1. And then this one is the negative, in order to make that a negative 3, but that a positive 2. So these have x's in them. These will have x's in them. So now, when we make our box, okay, the beginning of the trinomial is 3x squared. The end of the trinomial is negative 1. And now we have 3x and negative 1x in the box to factor. So now we just pull out the GCFs. So we pull out the GCFs. That's a 3x and that's a negative 1. Now let's go this way. That's an x and a positive 1. Let's just check ourselves. Okay, they all check. So that is, it says factor it. So now we have the 3 factors. So over here, I will write the 3 factors. So they are x plus 2, because that was the first one. That's the one they gave us. Also, 3x minus 1. That's the factor down the side. And also, x plus 1. So here is the fully factored form of this trinomial. We used one factor to divide and then factor the rest of it, okay? So the first one and now the other two. So then this last one builds on this. We start here, then we take it to the next places where we'll factor it, and then we'll finish out by solving where we've got that equals 0 that we've been doing lately, okay? So the exponents are 3, 2, 1, 0. We know that it's a 2, which remember means that the factor is a minus 2, okay, in case that helps. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start way over here, and I'm actually going to use this to set up my box. So I'm going to put a 2 here, because if the factor is minus 2, I do the opposite, or you do the same as what this 0 is, or what the solution is. So the coefficients are 1, negative 4, negative 11, and 30. Remember, we should get a 0 right there. If we don't, then we need to check ourselves. So let's bring this down. Multiply, add. Multiply, add. Multiply, and add. So that's exactly what I want. So here's the constant. And that means that one's x, and that one's the x squared. So now I need to factor x squared. Let me use a different color so that you can follow it. Okay, now we want to factor this. So x squared minus 2x minus 15. All right, well this is nice, it's basic. So what multiplies to negative 15 and adds to negative 2? 5 and 3 are the factor pair, and the 5 is negative, because that pair is the one that adds to negative 2. So we have x minus 5 is a factor, x plus 3 is a factor. Okay? But since we're being asked for zeros or solutions, or we're solving it, that means each one of them equals 0. So since they equal 0, that means that the opposite, if that equals 0, when I add 5, I get x is positive 5. When I subtract 3, I get x is negative 3. And then we also knew one of the solutions already, so I'm going to include that 2 from the beginning. Because remember, if we have an exponent of 3, there should be 3 solutions. So just to be careful, I'm going to include all 3 solutions in that problem. Okay? That way, like I've just answered the question fully, and if that way I don't get anything wrong if I forgot to include all of the zeros or something. Okay? So it builds. We go from dividing to factoring to solving on things that we already know about, but now we're just throwing the dividing in at the beginning. Okay? All right, we are good.